Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Jodo Cast, your Star Wars gaming podcast. This is episode 68. My name is Evan Lewis, and of course, I'm joined by Leo Andry.
And my name is Leo Andry.
It is. He knows his name. And
you always get to tell everybody what your name is. I never get to tell anybody what my name is, except for that one episode that I got to be like host prime.
I thought you guys had a couple of those recently. And the other guy is Joe Latovsky.
Hello.
You say, my name is Joe Latovsky.
Don't put words in my mouth. Going off script.
I wouldn't dare. Do it live. All right. Let's... You know what? First things...
Do it live.
Yep. All right. That'll never get old. Although, yeah, I have to explain it to people now. They, don't know what I'm talking about when I say, yeah, he used to be on Inside Edition. You remember that? And no, I wasn't born yet. Before we get on to anything else, we got to say thank you to all of our patrons who have given their time and talents over at patreon.com/thejodocast. And we have to give an extra special shout-out, a gigantic thank you to our newest patron, Joey Olson. Thank you so much for joining this elite band of awesome human beings.
Joey. No? Okay.
I'm not going to stop you. I will never stop cheering for a patron, ever. In fact, we should make T-shirts with their names on them. I'm just saying that's a possible thing we could do in the future. Oh, and I had also meant to say that I'm not saying that this is going to be a thing, but I did happen to go see both times I went to see Last Jedi were with patrons. It helps that they're local and my friends, but I'm not saying that that's not a thing that couldn't happen. It's not a patron level reward or anything. Just keep that in mind. Patrons are special people, and they are treated accordingly.
So, if you travel to Indianapolis, Evan will go to a movie with you.
Absolutely. Doesn't even have to be a Star Wars movie.
50 Shades movie's coming up soon, isn't it?
Yeah, if you're a high enough level patron, you guys can sit in the seats where the armrest between the two seats can lift up so you and Evan can cuddle.
I am pretty warm.
I think cuddling
I won't say it won't be comfortable.
A patron thing. But,
so to review, things to be added are me not singing and cuddling with me. Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Okay. You know what? We'll make that a goal.
Make it so. Wrong kind of podcast.
I was going to say that's as much as I would like to do that. In fact, we should just do a 25th anniversary of DS9 episode. What do you think of that?
Yeah, we should. I thought that's what we were talking about.
Oh crap!
Today.
Oh, we should. We should do the DS9 movie that we never got. Anyways, I'm still bitter about that 20-odd years later. Holy crap, it is 20 years, almost 20 since DS9 ended, much less started. All right, never mind. Let's talk about Star Wars stuff. Oh, and of course, again, patreon.com/thejodocast. If you are a patron, thank you. If you're not and you're curious, go check it out and see what you can do for us and we can do for you. And thank you for even just taking a look. Okay, Star Wars stuff. Let's talk about what we've been playing. I think it's been a while because the notes that I have for myself are a little out of date. But let's start with Joe.
I've been playing a decent amount of Battlefront 2 lately. Even started playing some more Heroes vs. Villains in the last couple nights with one of our patrons. So not only do we... Yeah, anyways. That was a lot of fun.
You can cuddle with Joe, too, digitally.
Yeah.
Digitally cuddle with Joe.
Yes. There might be an emote for that in Battlefront. But Heroes vs. Villains surprised me with how much fun I was having with it. Mostly just force pushing people, and getting force pushed is hilarious all the time because you fly way too far and you just kind of ragdoll everywhere. I went to an X-Wing tournament. It was a holiday special tournament. It had special rules where you had to do either Empire or Rebel factions. What exactly one ship on your list had to be from the Scum faction, and that Scum ship could not be the most expensive ship in your list. So it kind of encouraged people to make kind of these wacky builds you couldn't see otherwise. And you still had to respect, if something is like Scum only, you couldn't put that on your other ships. That still could only go on your Scum ship. So I ended up just running Ventress with Ken Kirk, and it was fun. I went 2-2. I don't know. I'm not going to get this in too much detail, but it was actually a pretty fun way to mix things up. Played some Star Wars Carcassonne since we last recorded.
Ooh.
With a patron.
Well, hey.
Oddly enough, we do have patrons who don't know us in person, if you were getting the impression to the contrary.
That's a very good point. Good disclaimer.
Like the one I was playing Battlefront 2, a shout out to Vader's March Kazoo.
Whoop, whoop.
And yeah, you don't know him in real life.
No, he could be catfishing me for all I know. I don't think so, though, because, we were talking on Xbox, but... and sort of Edge of the Empire? Well, I guess we did do that podcast, but I've been building characters for my players, and that's... all my characters finally have their players built. And so sometime in the next week or two, we're going to try and get together for our first session of our campaign. I've got 5 PCs, which was a lot more than I was expecting. And I might end up with one more, maybe. So,
Ooh,
wow,
that's
running
a full table.
6 is...
yeah, we'll see. But
6 PCs is going to be fun.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it. It's probably going to be pretty chill, but... we'll see how that goes. I'm excited about the story I made, but I'm also only committed to making the first session work, and if they go off the rails from that, it's not a big deal. That's what I've been playing.
Cool. How about Leo, if anything?
No, I guess I've since we last talked about it, I've played enough Battlefront 2 to know I probably won't ever play it again.
Did you at least get through the DLC story?
No.
No?
No, I don't even know if I've even bothered to download it. Actually, I think I started downloading it.
It's an automatic download, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you got to have Origin open for it to do that.
I see.
Why would I wouldn't have that sitting there running on my computer wasting resources unless I'm playing Battlefront. Yeah, I don't think I've even bothered to download it ever. So, yeah. I might get around to it.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Well, it can't be much worse than the rest of the campaign. And then I haven't played much tabletop because, with all the holidays and everything, there hasn't really been any events at my local gaming store. Here, those are all set to start up here next week.
Yeah,
well, actually, there is a Destiny thing tomorrow, but I'm not gonna make it because there's a work thing tomorrow night. Which kind of sucks since it's the first. It just continues my trend of not being able to make Destiny things. I missed every single event for the 2 months leading up to the Christmas season, and then there was nothing during Christmas. And then, so... I'm just convinced I might never actually get to play Destiny again at the way this is going. But no. But I am excited. My store has at least monthly draft events scheduled, one a month.
Ooh,
so
nice.
So at the very least, I'm hoping to at least make the drafts if I can't make anything else.
Yeah, I haven't actually heard anything about any drafts in my area, and I think of like I don't know what it is these days, 6, 7 board game stores in town, like all have given up on Destiny except for one.
Jeez.
Which is really weird because, I mean, around here, other than X-Wing, Destiny seems to be the only game with a large number of players and are like a decent number of players and some support from the stores. I mean, there's just not really hardly enough like Imperial Assault or Armada players around here to really make running any events worthwhile for the most part. But and I haven't actually been playing any Legion, but in anticipation of the game coming out shortly, because like right now rumors are looking like end of January, maybe for beginning of February here. So fingers crossed for that. But I've been dinking around trying to learn how to make terrain, and so right now, like my entire area around my computer is covered with little bits of foam and balls of paint and just random I've been using to try and make little bits of terrain with. So it's been fun so far. So
yeah, my local stores have been putting out on their social media to get your pre-orders in now for Legion. So
I did that a long time ago.
Right, but I think that just means that it's getting close.
Yeah.
But I have very I guess consternated conversations with my main store about FFG's releases, because they're like, do you know when they're coming out? I'm like, I mean, according to this, it's supposed to be this date, and they're like, well, we only have the one distributor now, so who knows if we get enough in.
Yeah. I mean, we've got, because it's like, it's on the boat on their distribution page right now. So we'll see. I think I feel kind of bad. It's going to be kind of weird because I'm buying all my product from my main store, but I'm probably going to end up playing the game almost exclusively at a different store because that's kind of like the main wargaming store in town. So they've got they've got 3x6 and 4x6 tables, and they've got all kinds of terrain pieces there for the store and everything like that. So I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, I'm just really excited for Legion. So I've been devoting more of my free time to getting ready for Legion than actually playing Star Wars games that are out right now.
I don't know. I think that's pretty legit. I think making stuff, being active in the hobby, I mean, you're still actively doing things for it. And you're creating. Creating is, I think a much more immersive act than just buying, which is pretty much all that I have been doing is buying.
I looked at buying bits of terrain, like looked at some of like this 3D printed stuff or some of like the MDF terrain, and decided against it just because I think I will enjoy my terrain more if I'm making it myself as opposed to just... I mean, with the MDF or the 3D printed, I mean, unless you want to just put down a plain hunk of plastic on the table, I mean, you still have to put work into it as far as like prepping the piece and doing some painting and things like that. But it still just doesn't seem the same to me as actually making the whole thing with your own two hands.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, and for me, also been playing Battlefront 2, not nearly as much as Joe. I've played the single-player DLC, like we were talking about before, and once I finished that, I've been pretty busy with other things, but yeah, when I've had time to play video games, that has not been one that I've been like, ooh, I'm going to spend the last hour or so that I have to play on that one. It's been other things. But let's see here. I guess I didn't talk about this yet on the show. I finally bought a box of Awakenings boosters because they were heavily discounted at my main store. And so I finally have a decent number of cards and a decent number of good cards that I can actually have some flexibility with my deck building, at least within the Awakenings set. So that's cool to have all that. And then I got the Rivals pack. In fact, they even had one just sitting on the shelf when I was there the other day, and I had to alert Zach and Christian to hurry up and get over there and buy it before it was gone. Because they really flew off the shelves. When I bought mine, they were like, hide that. Make sure no one sees you because you'll get mugged walking out of there with it. So really excited to have that. I probably will get another one just so I have elite versions of all the characters, if for no other reason. And 2 Jawas in case I really feel like
you have to buy 5 so you can have 5 Jawas to do your 5 Jawa swarm.
I don't know if I think that if I could do Jawas and Ewoks, I would totally do it.
One day, maybe.
One day. You never know. I bet Elite Wicket will be expensive as hell, though. I don't know. We'll see. Well, because I was talking to them about Legacy stuff also, and they're doing a deal of, I think it's 2 starters and some packs, or maybe it's like a box and a starter or something like that. So I got to figure out what I'm going to do with that. But I'm pretty excited for Destiny right now because they're releasing all these things, and they got the draft rules and everything like that, but also because I'm getting to introduce more people to Destiny. And they're really enjoying it the same way, we kind of lit up when we played those demos, the same damn demo time after time. And so, yeah, like with Christian, who's been on the show before and did our Gen Con coverage, I brought the 2-player decks, the 2-player intro pack decks. We played that right before we went to see Last Jedi on that Thursday night. And we didn't even get through a whole game, but he liked it so much that he went out to buy the 2-player pack, and now that's kind of our game, and we're showing more of our friends it, and I know Zach's got some, so we might be hitting up more Destiny in the area, and that's pretty exciting. And, segue, I got the latest LCG Force Pack. I haven't gotten to crack it open and add it to the collection yet. But that does kind of bring us to the topic, which has kind of shifted. When I came up with the topic to talk about Star Wars, the card game, in parentheses, the LCG, because apparently, according to some people, they confuse LCG, or Star Wars the card game, with Destiny. I think it was one of the guys from the local indie Star Wars gaming community on Facebook.
Oh, how sad would that be if someone heard all this hype about Destiny and had played it with someone who's like, I love this, and he ran out to his game store and bought the core set for the LCG and came home. And they're like, sorry, no refunds.
Yeah. Oh. Well, then you're never shopping there again, that's for damn sure. But yeah, people do get it confused. And I had this conversation with this guy on Facebook about, we are all surprised and happy when a new product comes out for it, but no one plays. I mean, I'm lucky to have the community in Muncie that plays fairly frequently.
I was actually going to play yesterday, but I was having car trouble and I couldn't. So I almost.
Well, we know it wasn't
played-
snow troubles, right?
What?
We know it wasn't snow-related troubles, right?
It was a blinker-related trouble.
Okay. But yeah, when I was writing up these notes, it was quite some time ago.
My microphone's been on mute for like 5 minutes here.
Because you're reading about
Okay.
Animaniacs.
Whoops. No, it's because I muted it because I had a big giant cough and didn't want to blow at your guys' ears. And then I just didn't unmute it, apparently.
So you're like yelling at us like, no, listen to me. Okay, well, you can repeat yourself in just a moment. But when I was writing up these notes, it was right around the time that it was announced that LCG had lost its lead designer, who I think we had known, I don't know that it was confirmed anywhere in writing, that this person, Eric Dahlman, was the only person on the Star Wars LCG team doing any sort of development ever since the original designer of the game, Eric Lang, had left that team. And it's not as if these guys are being fired, they're moving on to other teams. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, Eric Dahlman, and this hasn't necessarily been confirmed. Maybe it has been by now because that article was some time ago. But it was reported that he was on the L5R team. So it's not like people are just like losing their jobs over this game, but it's certainly not being treated well. Not that it's ever been treated well. You know, we've been looking at this game's end for the better part of 4 years or so. I think the first year, 2012 to 2013, we were relatively positive about it. Not maybe how it was played, but in terms of a future. But ever since then, ever since maybe like the second cycle, we've just been surprised every time they said, hey, there's a new product coming out. And they announced rotation within the past, year and a half, maybe? When they announced that they would start doing rotation on their LCGs, like all of them were included. Although, even the ones that were active at the time and are now no longer being made, but Star Wars was certainly included in that conversation. And now we're in the middle of the 6th cycle, and we are just sort of counting down until it ends, but it seems like we've been there already for so many years. Do you guys think that this time it's for real?
So we've got, 2 more packs and then nothing? Or is it 1 more and then nothing?
We've got, so pack 4 of this cycle just came out. Pack 5, we've seen a preview for. That's the one with Obi-Wan on the front. And then pack 6, we haven't even seen a preview for yet. And these are supposed to be semi-monthly releases. Like maybe every other, depending on what all else they have at the printer at any given time. But, no more than maybe a couple months apart. And we haven't seen a hide nor hair of a preview for Pack 6.
You know what? I mean, we always keep getting surprised, but again, I think this is probably it.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's more, it's probably going to be something big, like Netrunner got a second core set, something of that magnitude. If there's anything else past this, but I feel like this might be it.
Yeah, and of course, I doubt from a business perspective that they particularly like having 2 card games. going at the same time. Not that they are necessarily competing. I think they exist in a very different sort of gaming space. But, I mean, Destiny is certainly... just looking at... For you, Leo, you really prefer Destiny over LCG, right?
Yeah, like I've always said, LCG was an okay game. I don't think it was ever a great game, and either way, I just always kind of felt like it never really thematically fit with Star Wars. Like you will never be able to convince me that they didn't already have this game half designed before they got the Star Wars license. Mm-hmm. And when they got the Star Wars license, they slapped a Star Wars skin over this game that they already had going. So yeah, I guess I don't know. Destiny is just a lot more fun to me. So I guess, I have really no, not qualms. I guess it's not really going to be a real sad day for me, if the LCG does go away. Mm-hmm. I will be sad for the people who do play and enjoy the game because for one, I definitely like the LCG business model a lot better because it's a hell of a lot cheaper for a consumer to play an LCG than a CCG. And so I definitely understand people who prefer the LCG for financial reasons 100%. And so that'll suck for them to have that gone for sure. But personally I'm not going to mourn the game a whole lot if we were to hear, within the next month or two that they're going to be suspending production of that game.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, you've never felt any attachment to this at all. As far as card games go, it's been Destiny for you, and even then, that's really not your big number one game.
I've played a decent amount of the LCG since it's come out, and I do actually, the game grew on me quite a bit after I moved to Tucson. Although, it's usually never my first choice of a game, and I'm like, oh, let's play Imperial Assault, but it's usually after some new sets come out, it's like, okay, let's try out some new stuff. And I don't know if I feel like at this point, just currently, because I've sort of mellowed out on my interest in Destiny lately. Maybe LCG and Destiny are kind of uneven footing for me as far as if someone was like, what do you want to play? I'd be like, I don't care, pick one. But at the same time, I'm not going to be broken up about it if this game is over, because I don't play it often enough, and then I'll just save money.
Oh, sure. Yeah. One fewer Star Wars games for us to have to allot money for is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's no secret that this has been my preferred Star Wars tabletop experience since it came out. Even when they announced in early 2012 that FFG had the license and that they were going to do miniatures, card games, and RPGs, RPG was my number one, but my number two was card games, and miniatures were at the bottom of that list. But LCG, for all of its faults and, the times when it wasn't that... It wasn't as good as it is now. It's got some serious legs now, I think. But, FFG seems to have a certain threshold for the number of LCGs that they can support at a given time. Because as we've seen before, when they had the original Call of Cthulhu LCG and, let's see, what else? Warhammer Invasion. Both of those phased out in order to make room for other ones. I think Conquest came out after Invasion ended. And then after Call of Cthulhu LCG went away, they came out with the Arkham Horror LCG. And now they've got L5R, and they're still supporting Lord of the Rings. And they've got Game of Thrones 2nd Edition, which is still standing strong on its own. But then, of course, they haven't really... I guess they did more or less stop supporting First Edition Game of Thrones in terms of new releases and tournaments, but they kept pushing that up until 2nd Edition became, a fully supported game, to their credit. So I'm wondering if Destiny fits into this card game support threshold, or if they've got something else in the pipeline. I guess if I was going to pick one of their own properties, which I think they do need to push more of their own properties, it'd be cool to see an LCG set in the Twilight Imperium universe, because I don't know anything about it except from what I see on the box, but I know people really enjoy that universe.
How many?
I know
well,
Leo
the
had
universe
something to say
also, I
about
think, changes between versions of the game. I don't know anything about it, but I'm pretty sure like each iteration of the game they might tweak stuff. But does Fantasy Flight have any like of their own large properties besides Twilight Imperium and the whatever the Rune Wars universe is called? That's the only ones that spring to mind.
Oh, and then the Android universe. But of course that's already covered.
Is that Fantasy Flight? I thought that was something beyond them.
Well, I mean, it used to be published by Wizards of the Coast, but it's theirs now.
Oh, I suppose same with
L5R.
But even then,
when the original game came out, that was It was Wizards of the Coast, wasn't it? I guess I'm just assuming that since it was Richard Garfield that.
Yeah, it was Netrunner specifically, like that. Everything that falls under the banner of Netrunner it's still billed as a game by Richard Garfield, licensed by Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, it even has the...
Well, I suppose because they have like the Android universe, and then they kind of stuck Netrunner into their Android universe. That's right.
Exactly.
Sort of like what they did with when they got the Dune board game. They couldn't publish it as Dune because they couldn't get the rights to that. So they just stuck all those game mechanics into a Twilight Imperium skin and called it Rex.
Oh, I guess I didn't realize that.
Yeah, their game Rex is actually the old Avalon Hill Dune board game.
Oh,
with
man.
a Twilight Imperium skin.
That kills me even further because I'm sure I told you the story about at the anniversary in-flight report, they were like, when they were first a company, like, let's get Dune, let's do Dune card game, board game. And like, they won't give us the license. Like, well, what other book series is there? I don't know, this Game of Thrones thing. Before people gave a crap about it. I mean, that whole saga of them trying to do Dune. Just, I want there to be Dune stuff so bad. And I want them to do it. I want to have Dune LCG.
I would play that.
Hell yeah.
Assuming it had better mechanics than the Star Wars one.
I think, well, we'll talk about that because I think they learned a lot of lessons from it, if nothing else. In fact, that's the next thing I want to talk about was, like, what were its problems? Because it seemed like, I mean, we know it's not about seeming. It had problems even from the get-go because it was originally players versus the board instead of player versus player. Like it was more like Lord of the Rings LCG. And then when people found out they couldn't play as Darth Vader, they got all up in arms and they switched it in mid-development. Which, yeah, I mean, that's just bad news.
So, I don't know. I think for me, the biggest thing was that, at least when the game initially came out, there wasn't a lot of things you could do that felt thematic to Star Wars, you know? I mean, the edge battle, what is that? I can't, in my mind, I can't connect that to a Star Wars-y type thing. Same thing, I mean, committing your units to the Force is, they say that you're committing to the Force, but I don't know, it feels weird to me that by committing them to the Force, you then you get penalized for using that unit and stuff. And I mean, there's just a lot of things in there that don't feel like they fit with the Star Wars theme. And then when you first started playing the game, thematically, things were just weird and kind of all over the place. Like, I know lots of people were like, oh, this is so fucking weird. I'm attacking your Star Destroyer with my Wampa. What is this? You know, it really, people thought that was really strange, you know, and I mean, and there was stuff like you couldn't put a pilot in a ship. You couldn't, you know, and just all kinds of things like that.
That's one of my things I enjoy about that game. Usually, I prefer very, very thematic games. Probably one of the reasons I'm not so big on Euro games. With this game is super abstract, and like we said, there's this kind of Star Wars slapped onto it for the most part. And that's one of the things that kind of makes it fun to me in a weird way, because I try and like think in my head what the heck is actually happening when you have like, you know, Obi-Wan have this thing equipped, and then he generates resources that brings Luke Skywalker into the world. So, you know, Obi-Wan is dual-wielding lightsabers, and he just gave birth to Luke Skywalker, who then runs over there and swings at a Star Destroyer and knocks the Star Destroyer out of the sky by himself. And then the Ewok says, no, Palpatine, Palpatine, you gotta sit there for this round. Because there's like an Ewok that can say somebody is not allowed to participate. So an Ewok could literally just be like, you know what, Vader, you're sitting this one out. And it's so silly, and I like trying to talk out what's happening because it makes so little sense. It just makes the dumbest story.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I never tried to parse out the finer logistics of having Ewoks trying to blow up the Death Star. I was always able to take them at their word of like, this represents the overall conflict, you know, buying a lot of the excuses in the instruction manual of like, this is what the edge battle is. It represents
I don't think I ever actually read the rulebook for that game, because it sucked.
Just as
I
well.
remember when that game came out, I tried playing it as like the demo copy, and I sat down with my friend and we looked at the rulebook and we're like, is this for real? It's huge. All right, maybe we'll... and then I think Leo taught me one time, and then I moved here, and Dan, one of our patrons, he taught me, and so yeah, I've never actually learned the rules. And I've only ever had to teach one person the game, so, and that was like a one-time thing, so I've never like had to actually know the rules, just enough to like keep the game moving, and if something gets weird, my opponent usually can tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, and just as an example of how poorly designed that rule book is, compared to learning and teaching Legend of the Five Rings, that game has so many phases and sub-phases. It's like building a bookshelf from IKEA, but it's still more well laid out and easier to parse out. You know, step A, then subsection 1 of paragraph 2, than it is with the Star Wars LCG manual.
I guess I didn't have an issue with that. I pretty much sat down and played the game and got it right away, I guess.
Huh. I mean, once you play it, it seems it's all pretty straightforward. But I remember
it makes sense once you get there.
Maybe I actually might have watched their little like demo videos that Fantasy Flight puts out sometimes first.
And this was
before reading through the books,
way before the
rule book
changed their rule book system. Because now you get like 3 books, and one is like, this is how you can do your first game ever. Here's the bare minimum. And then there's like the rules reference that just gives you a glossary of everything you can look up, and it'll explain it.
I'm torn on whether I like that, though. Like I played over the last weekend, I played Twilight Imperium for the first time because a buddy of mine got that for Christmas. And so we both had Monday off since it was New Year's Day, so we devoted the entire day to playing Twilight Imperium.
2-player?
Nice.
Actually, it was 3-player. It turned into a 2-player game because we were like, okay, well, it's 3-player minimum. And so his son wanted to play, so we played, and by about 3 turns in, he was mad because he wasn't able to build War Suns yet, which are like the big, huge, like most expensive ships you can build in your fleet. And so he decided he was bored and quit. So it turned into a 2-player game, which is totally not the proper way to play. But I guess I now have things down for whenever I play a real game. But the thing is like, we spent so much time flipping around between 3 different books. It really annoyed me because like I would be reading about a phase in the how to play book, but then I'd be like, but then it would just like say something, but you wouldn't really clarify it, and then it'd be like, okay, well now I guess I gotta go over to this other book and flip through that one to try and get more details. So I don't know. I mean, I get what they're going for with it, but I still think having everything split up between 2 books is just, it's not good for learning to play the game. I think once you learn how to play the game, having a separate book that's just the rules reference is great. That's nice. I think it's a little bit more of a pain to learn when everything is all over the place like that.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am. Every time I try to break out Imperial Assault, I think it's just a matter of not doing it frequently enough. If I played that more frequently, then it probably wouldn't bother me at all to have all the different books, because I think that one has, 3 or 4 even?
Yeah, there's a Learn to Play, a campaign book, which actually isn't a rule book. It's just all the scenarios and missions, the skirmish rule book, and like the rules reference guide. So yeah, it comes with 4 books.
But that one's pretty justifiable that you have the 2-player and the campaign in addition to how to play and glossary.
Mm-hmm.
But then following the release of the core set, we didn't have very good support. Well, I mean, we had good support. We just didn't have very good sets. The 2 sets that followed immediately were not thrilling. The Hoth set, like I remember them talking about the main mechanic was lots of shields. I'm like, okay, I guess that's cool.
And like
not
having
really.
Hoth objectives, like that was sort of like,
yeah.
I mean, it was sort of like, it kind of reminded me a little bit of like they were trying to do something like in the old CCG, where on Hoth you actually have to lay out your locations in a specific order. Most other planets aren't like that. You can kind of lay them out willy-nilly. But on Hoth, you have Echo Base, and then you have all your exterior sites are like first marker, second marker, third marker, blah, 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 all the way out to, the edge of like where the edge of the shields are. And so anytime the Imperial players want to land ground troops down on Hoth, they have to start out beyond the outer marker and then march their way in towards Echo Base, which was, I think, a great thematic way to design the locations for that set. And I think they were kind of trying to do something with that where you have more Hoth objectives and it kind of simulates the two sides fighting for control over the planet as the battle rages, but it just didn't really work, I think.
Well, and then as soon as we were out of the Hoth cycle and there were other cards to be had, it was like, well, no one's gonna be winning, who's got more Hoth objectives on the table, because it's not going to be either of them unless someone really, really, really wants to play that few set of cards. They're like, oh, if you've got more Hoth objectives, you get a bonus.
Haven't they, trickled out a couple of Hoth objective sets since the Hoth cycle, though?
Wasn't there one a couple packs ago?
I think there have been some which people have been like, oh, okay, Hoth's coming back a little bit. And of course now we have a lot more new mechanics that work better with that. And then the follow-up to that, which Echoes of the Force, I liked a lot, and it sees a lot of presence in the meta. I liked it pretty much because you could think of it as the Dark Forces cycle, which made my day. I was super happy about that.
Yeah. Well, and then right about then they also came out with that 2-player deluxe expansion also, didn't they? Was that the first?
The first deluxe expansion was Edge of Darkness, which was basically just finishing off the core set.
Oh, yeah.
Which you had to buy 2 of that also, which, okay, I guess that's fine. Except that to get 2 core sets and 2 Edge of Darkness, because I know a Team Covenant was doing that for a while. Like the starter pack that you could buy from them was 2 cores, so that's like $80, and then 2 Edge of Darkness, which would have been like $60. So get you started. That's more than I was willing to invest in just those specific cards. And I guess it makes sense in retrospect, but at the time I was like, I really don't feel the need to get 2 boxes of Edge of Darkness. Although that has a pretty prominent place in the meta also. And that's a box that would never rotate out either unless they were to do a really big slash and burn of old sets. But yeah, you're right. Balance of the Force, that came out about the same time as Echoes of the Force.
Yeah, that was not a very exciting deluxe expansion.
Yeah, it was not.
I liked what they tried to do with the whole, like one versus 2 or 3 players thing. But in practice, neither of those, raid decks, I didn't think were all that great.
And then it also tried to introduce 2v2.
Yeah, and in practice, I don't really enjoy 2v2 play all that much.
I love the concept of it. Like, I enjoyed it when you and I played in that tournament.
Yeah, I mean, because I was playing with you. I mean, the actual game itself was not a lot of fun, I didn't think.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think about the only thing I ended up really being excited for was I believe that in that pack was the first time there was ever Mara Jade in the game. That was the first time a Mara Jade card came out. Well, I mean, I guess she was in art for other cards, but an actual Mara Jade character card.
Yeah, and I think that one had a place in the meta for a short period of time until her cycle card came out just a little bit later on in Echoes. because when they announced rotation, they said that Echoes would be one of the other cycles to leave, and I really don't want to lose that Mara Jade because her with her lightsaber is really good combo. And there's a few other cards in Echoes of the Force that I won't be sad to see go either if the game survives to that point. And then things finally started to get better with Rogue Squadron, which I think we started talking about off the air. But Rogue Squadron came out about the same time as Between the Shadows. And I thought both of those were finally starting to hit a design space that was really, really good. Like, good tight design on how to get the most out of the existing mechanics, and then finding new ways to make things work. Rogue Squadron introduced putting pilots on ships, which we had been doing since the core set of CCG. That's just a thing that we expected to have.
Yeah, I think that was the beginning of when they finally started to introduce some things to make it feel a little more thematic. I mean, and that's that's one thing about the LCG is from the beginning they have steadily improved. I feel like, as they went on, they started to figure out what they were doing and put out better sets.
To me, it almost feels like it took them, because I feel like where I bought in, which was, I think, summer 2016 at the, whatever that big box with Palpatine on the front was, Galactic Ambitions.
Yep.
Because I had bought all the previous boxes, but none of the packs. So after Galactic Ambitions, I started getting all the packs as they came out. And I feel like from that point on was like decent stuff. Because it was all kind of, and which is, because that was 2016, the game came out in 2012. So that means it almost took them 4 years to figure out how to make their game like pretty alright, which is sad, because like maybe if they had led with that content, they might not have lost their player base. Because I feel, after I bought it, I'm like, okay, this game's pretty fun, I like these cards, and now they're coming out with Rebels characters, which makes me want to play more, and Rogue One stuff, but it's mechanics-wise, those cards just seemed better than a lot of the older cards. And not in like an overpowered way, just in like a decent game design way.
Yeah, in a more well thought out, good game design way. You're absolutely right.
But it took them 4 years to figure that out, apparently, which is not good.
And apparently putting it into the hands of a completely different person than the guy that came up with the original design. And yeah, like you were saying, the last two cycles, Opposition, which is Cycle 5, you could call that the Rebels cycle, and the current one, Alliances, you can call that the Rogue One cycle. And it infuriates me to no end that Armada has more of these new characters, new canonical characters that we see in Rebels, in Rogue One, before the LCG, and like, this is where we should see all these people showing up first, isn't here. Like, this is the easiest format for them to release these characters into the game space.
Right, because there's literally no, like, it's just literally everybody, because, like we said, there's hardly a theme to it. It's just Star Wars, go.
Yes. They don't need to pair a character with, like, a plastic miniature. They're not like, where are we going to put Governor Price? Like, you just make a card. Done. Where are we going to put Shara Bay? Like, you don't put her on an E-Wing. You just, like, bam, card, done. Play. So, I mean, like you said, they're doing okay now, but it's a little late, and I don't even know that FFG has enough interest to do a revamp of it, either a second edition like Game of Thrones, where they toss all the old cards into the fire, or just a Core 2.0, like with Netrunner, where they do a rotation and they come out with a new core that is more balanced, has all the mechanics, cleaned up the cards, replaces old cards with new versions of them, and makes it easier to get into. Like maybe instead of having full decks of 4 factions and then saying, oh, you got to buy this other box to get these other factions, they can do like they've done with Game of Thrones 2nd and Netrunner 2nd and have like half decks of all the factions. And you say, well, if you want a full deck, you combine your Rebels and your Scum, and there you go. You're ready to go. Play some games. So, do you think there's any... Well, without even talking about merit, like business, financial side merit to doing this, do you think that there would be any advantage just for the consumers if they did this? Do you think they could salvage a community with a new core set?
I don't think many people would even jump onto that, because I feel like if there's anybody, there's probably very, very few people who are like, you know what, I always thought about giving that game a try. At this point, all of those people are probably like, nah, not for me. I looked into it. Everyone says it's kind of whatever. I'll just play Destiny or L5R. Like, I bet there's just very few people who are like, yeah, I always thought about it, and this new core set is exactly the kick I needed to jump in. I don't think that person's out there anymore.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because everything I see, whether it's Reddit or it's on Facebook, they're just like, so I'm selling my cards, or someone's like, so should I bother with this? And everyone's kind of like, no.
Right? Like, I enjoy the game quite a bit, but I could not recommend anybody start playing this now unless somebody like gifted you their collection or you got it for like $10 or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so frustrating. I mean, pretty much everything about this is frustrating for people that really enjoy it, because people that really like it, like a lot. The guy that I was talking about earlier that I was having that conversation with on Facebook, we were talking about how much we like the game, but no one wants to play it, and people confuse it for Destiny, and I'm just like, this is not 2 or 3 people just standing in the middle punching each other in the face. It's like, yeah, you're right, this is, XYZ better. And I can't say Destiny is not fun. It's certainly fun. But personally, if I had to choose between the two, I'd probably pick LCG. But I'm definitely in the minority, both on here and in the rest of the world. But if they had a second edition, I'd be more enthused about a Core 2.0 than a second edition. There's only a few things that they would have to do to change the game, in my opinion, to make it more viable. I do think the pod system hurt it. The fact that the deck designing or deck building is kind of stilted by that. But
yeah, when the game first came out, I thought the pod system was an interesting idea, and I was definitely intrigued by it. And to start out with, I didn't mind it, but like as the game went on, I don't know, I didn't really care for its system of deck building. It's definitely a unique way to build your deck in the card game space. So I mean, I appreciate that, but it just didn't work for me. I just would have rather built a deck out of individual cards myself.
And you know what you were saying earlier, both of you, about it kind of feels like they had already designed the game, and then they got the license, and they just put a Star Wars wrapper on it. That's probably, why we have the pod system, is because they'd already built it, I was of the opinion when it first came out that this was supposed to be an easier way to build decks, hoping for a larger audience because they were trying to attract people with the Star Wars name, and like, here's this easier way to play. You don't need to build whole 60 card decks. You just build using the pods. I thought it was a means of getting more people into playing, but you're probably right that it was just they had already built it. This was the game that was designed. Oh, now it's a Star Wars game.
I just, in the end, I hated always trying to remember what cards were in what pod. Like, if I was building, I couldn't just look at the pods, pick out the 10 pods I wanted, and then go grab the cards. I had to flip through an entire pod and take a look at the cards, and then evaluate that whole pod against another entire pod, instead of just being able to evaluate cards on their own individual merits. And like I said, I mean, I know that was the point. I just didn't enjoy it.
Right. And it also kind of, you've had a good chunk of your deck already designed, already built. I keep saying design, built for you at that point. Because, like, if you're building a Magic deck, like, yeah, you can't have just bombs in your deck. You can't have just the big cards. You have to have some garbage that you can put out quickly, but it's still useful to you. But then you look at a pod like the Flight of the Crow that has the Moldy Crow card, that if you get the edge, you can just blast an objective for 4 damage, and you've pretty much won that conflict. It's got some of the worst accompanying cards. And if I was building a 60-card deck in any other game, like, I wouldn't have those garbage cards. They're, what is it, Rusan Farmer is just the worst?
Yeah, but I mean, like, they do that on purpose, though, to kind of try and balance out a pod. Like, if they put a really nice, good card in a pod, you're going to get a little bit, usually, I mean, when they're doing the way it was supposed to be, they've said, this way we can put a nice card in there in a pod, and then, or give the objective a really awesome ability or whatever, but then that's kind of balanced out by you having a little bit more trash in your deck.
Mm-hmm.
Which, but yeah, from a gameplay standpoint, I don't necessarily enjoy that,
Yeah.
I hate the idea of basically having cards in my deck that are pretty much nothing but fodder for edge battles and things like that.
Right. I was going to point that out, that every card has some value because of the edge battle, in much the same way that every card in Destiny, even if you can't use it, has value because you can discard it to reroll. That kind of thing. But that doesn't mean it's fun. So I guess the final word, we've been going at this for a while because I love to beat this dead horse. This is my favorite dead horse to beat, is whether or not LCG is going to live or die at the end of this year. But I think if we don't hear anything by the time of Worlds in May, we can probably kiss it goodbye. And I don't think anyone's going to be surprised. I don't think anyone's going to mourn too hard. I think the hardcore community, because it's got a hardcore community. I'll say that. But, we're all going to move on.
I mean, I imagine there's going to be a group of people who they're going to continue playing it even after it's done. I mean that is one thing about a game like this, is even after it's done, there's no reason you can't keep playing. I mean, you've still got all the cards you have and stuff. I mean, hell, there's still people playing the Decipher CCG even today.
Although I don't think there's going to be a player, what is it? Not Congress, just council? Yeah, I don't think there's going to be an LCG council for this guy. but you never know. I mean, I certainly have ideas. I think this would be actually an easier one to build player-made cards for than the CCG, but maybe that's just me. I just never had a really solid grip on the CCG design. But yeah, and it's not as if they announce new things at Gen Con, so I wouldn't even hold out hopes for them coming out of Gen Con saying, hey, we've got Core 2.0 coming out. I think we'll know one way or another by the time of Worlds in May. Because if that's going to be the last World Championship, they're going to let us know. They're going to say this is the last LCG World Championship. They will give it that much recognition at least, even though they haven't really recognized it much at all over the last few years. You guys have any other thoughts on that, or should we wrap this sucker up?
I got nothing. I think, do we all agree that it's dead after this cycle? Are we in concurrence?
I would not be. I guess I'm not going to be surprised, but I've also predicted its death a few times already, and it hasn't happened yet. So I'm kind of hesitant to say definitively, but yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I think we were predicting its death even back when we were still on Mos Eisley Radio.
I don't know if it was that long ago, but maybe.
I don't know.
What if there's just like one person in the Lucasfilm licensing department who loved the game so much he put in some kind of sneaky clause that says they're not allowed to cancel it without their say-so?
Maybe it's Kathleen Kennedy. She loves some LCG.
She wasn't president when that game was started.
I know. That's
but
why
she
it's
is
funny.
now. Maybe she amended she's altering the deal.
She's the one that's responsible for the good game design that they have now.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Hey, you never know. You don't know.
Okay, I don't know, but I'm pretty damn confident in my suppositions.
All right. I can't fault you there. All right. Well, if that's all we've got to say, then we'll wrap up. And would either of you like to take us out, or shall I do it? I don't care. I do care. I care very much about it. I want everyone to know where they can find us. And since I don't hear any enthusiastic voices, I think I'll do it. So once again, you can go over to patreon.com/thejodocast, and you can see all of the cool ways that you can help us, and that we say thank you. And I haven't said this enough, but if you don't think you would like to join the coolest team of people in the world on Patreon, we really still appreciate your support. And if you want to, please leave us a review on iTunes. We haven't talked about that much lately, but we really do appreciate reviews on iTunes. It does help to push the show out there. It puts it higher up on the list, especially when people just search for Star Wars podcast, or X-Wing or Destiny podcasts, or Imperial Assault podcasts. It pushes it up there higher in the rankings. People see it more often, and that would be a huge help to us. Also, if you want to help us a lot, you can check out our latest version of our feedback survey, which is over at the website, jodocast.com. You just follow the link at the top. I think it's just feedback, right, Joe? Just the button itself is just feedback. I suppose I could pull it up myself so that I'm not lying. Yes, it's feedback. And so you can do that. It just takes a few minutes. Tell us about yourself and what you like about the show, and if there's anything different you'd want to see. And if you want to listen to us, or you want to tell your friends, please do tell your friends where they can listen to us. I was going to say iTunes, but it's actually Apple Podcasts now, if I'm not too mistaken. I'm not sure why. You still pull up the iTunes store to get there. But yes, Apple Podcasts, parentheses, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, and our RSS feed. And if there's other podcatchers that we don't list here that you think we should, or maybe we've already been placed on, or if you have a preferred one that we're not on, let us know, and we'll get that taken care of. If you want to talk with us, you can do so on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's all .com/thejodocast. If you want to watch us, you can do so on Twitch and Mixer. I think it's Mixer more than Twitch these days, which is the preferred method of Xbox One, if you're wondering why. It's just easier for us to stream Battlefront 2 on there. Although if Leo is going to do anything, any art stuff or any Rogue Squadron or anything else like that, that'll probably still be on Twitch. And of course YouTube, everything that we put out on any of those platforms will also be on YouTube. If you want to talk with us and other people, you can do so at reddit.com/r/thejodocast. And still our most popular place to get together with each other and friends is at our Discord server, which you can find a link to also at our website, jodocast.com. If you want to email us, you can do so, show@jodocast.com. Still do let us know if you email us something so that we don't miss it, but it is a bit more cleaned up lately. So thank you to Leo for taking care of that for us. And I don't think we missed anything. Any other comments from the gallery? I think of you two as the two old guys from the Muppet Show up in the balcony. And I'm the Kermit.
I like that description.
I thought you would.
That's really what I aspire to be in my life.
Sweet. We'll make that into a t-shirt now. Just you two heckling me from the balcony. Oh, ho, 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 ho.
We need...
All right.
Never mind.
What? Uh-oh.
I need
Okay.
better one-liners if I want to aspire to be the guy's names I don't remember.
I always forget to. All right. I think that's going to be it. So we will talk with you soon. No, that's it. We're done. Okay. Have a good night, everybody. Goodbye.